When people who are born blind have a near-death experience, they claim that they can see, and they report all of the same commonalities as sighted people having near-death experiences all over the globe. Now, if that's just brain-based, how in the world is that working? Nobody who's come up with these alternate explanations have ever explained that. I'll give you an example. Brad Barrows is a man who I interviewed. Brad was blind from birth, yet at age 8, Brad was living in the Boston Center for Blind Children, and he contracted a severe case of pneumonia. He learned later from a nurse that his heart had indeed stopped for 4 minutes, and it was only because of CPR that they brought him back.
Sorry, we couldn't get the video working, but that's kind of how life goes, isn't it?
Yes.
So I wanted to talk to you about your near-death experience, but maybe even before you get to that, just tell us a little bit about yourself. You were born without eyesight, and
I was born totally blind. Yes.
You don't have mental images like or dream in pictures or anything like that, do you?
No, all my images, whether awake or asleep, are non-visual, completely non-visual. In fact, in my dreams, for instance, I can hear and I can touch in my dreams. I have a tactile sense, and I have a sense of smell on rare occasion in my dreams, but I have no visual sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So when you were 8, you had a near-death experience.
I did.
And suddenly could see?
I actually was able to see through much of the experience. Yes.
So tell us about that. Tell us what that was. What happened that night?
My breathing stopped altogether. And after that very frightening moment, very quickly developed a sense of tremendous peace, as if everything was going to be very, very good. My actual body was still on the bed, but I started going slowly upward through the room that I was in, through the ceiling, through another room where someone was occupying a bed, but I didn't get a chance to look very much, but through that ceiling and the roof of the building. And then I started noticing that I could tell traffic was moving slowly and awkwardly on a street that was bordering this building, but I couldn't figure out how I knew the traffic was moving. I knew I could hear some of the traffic, but I could tell it was moving without even hearing it. And I thought this was peculiar, very peculiar. And there were different shades of light constantly moving along with the cars.
And did you realize you were visually perceiving things?
I knew that I was experiencing a sense that I never experienced before. How could I know about traffic going up and down streets?
Or a trolley car.
Or a trolley. When the only thing I knew as a living person was how they sounded. This was all without really hearing them. And that was puzzling to me. Here it was still rising up through the air, and the cars, the vehicles were getting smaller as perspective was changing. There were even streetcars. There were trolleys along the same street going up or down this track in the middle of the street, or a set of tracks. And I could tell how they were moving on these tracks. But as I was rising, every vehicle was shrinking in size. And then I found myself entering a very, very fast-moving, whirling tunnel. And as I was entering this tunnel, it began to narrow, the tunnel itself. It was a very steep, rising tunnel, but I was almost effortlessly rising through it. And while I was in that tunnel, there was nothing visual striking me at all. You would describe it as dark, completely dark. something like what I could only describe as vision, but I knew there was an open meadow ahead of me, very steep in terms of grade. It was a very, I couldn't have done a hill like that easily back on the earthly plane back here, but I noticed I was coming out into it.
Hmm.
And as the meadow was becoming more and more clear to me, I started noticing very tall trees and tremendously impressive height of the trees. Just not really knowing how to measure them. They were far greater, far higher than I could ever picture a tree. And yet these were things I never was touching. I was only noticing them through what I could only call vision. Then I knew the grass was amazingly lush and very alive. And by that time, I started noticing also that there was not only light shining at me, but there was literally light emanating out of me as well. And I thought, this is something I don't know how to explain, not at all. And yet there it was. And it was as if I was totally bathed in that light. And that the light was
describe that light.
Sure. I will do it as best I can because it is in many respects beyond most description, but it was a light that literally entered me and literally pervaded my entire being like at that time. And it was extremely bright whiteness of light. And it was color, a brilliant color, like I had I'd never known any light like this before, but it was so bright that I got the impression that if I were to notice it, anything like this on my normal earthly plane, it would be far more than I could take, far more than I could possibly soak in. And yet, during that time, I had no problem soaking it in. In fact, I loved it. I thought I just felt like I was part of that light as the light was shining in and on me at once. And but again, much of what I noticed, I couldn't even describe at all. It was far beyond that description. Oh, by the way, by this time I was starting to hear the music, the singing, the thousands of voices singing. But what's weird is I did not see them. I did not visualize them at all. It was as if they were in the distance. And yet I was coming closer and closer to them. And I wanted to come closer. I was moving fast. I was moving rapidly up this long hill.
Up a hill. And is this like a valley? And what does it look like?
It looked like to me like the side of a very high mountain. I was actually climbing up the side of possibly from a valley upward in a very steep grade, tremendously steep. But then I got to this. Another thing I noticed was a gate, an archway, actually, more accurately. And I could tell the archway because one thing that was peculiar about it was it had a multitude of colors, many different kinds of colors. And because I didn't know how to describe the colors, those were brilliant in themselves. And then at that point, I noted ahead of me a very imposing, very tall figure. If I were to estimate it now, it would have been somewhere around 9 feet in height, but it was definitely an angel of some sort, or at least very likely. And I noticed him, and he started speaking to me in thought. It was not in an actual voice, but it was more like thought, saying, "Brad, it is not your time yet. And I thought to myself, why? Why not? I want to be here. There's some more love and more light and more now than I could ever even think of. I want to be here. I want to go further. And he told me in thoughts, again, if I were to allow that love to pervade my life, I would see this place again. And that I had a mission to fulfill on earth. And that's why it was not my time yet. I could tell there was a great deal of love in what he was telling me. And as soon as I began to agree, boom, I was back on my bed.
Okay, so think about this, because I report on other blind people in both my books, like Vicky, another near-death experiencer, blind from birth, who at 22, she is in a car accident. And she also describes going up through this tunnel that's dark into this world of otherworldly music and light, very similar to what Brad said. She comes out in this beautiful garden. She sees her deceased grandmother and 2 childhood friends who died at age 9 and age 7, along with a bunch of other people who were coming to welcome her. And here's what she said. She said she was in a place of tremendous light. And the light, Vicky said, was something you could feel as well as see. Everybody there was made of light. And what the light conveyed was love. And there was love everywhere. And it was like love came out of the grass, and love came out of the birds, and love came out of the trees. And so she's describing this light that is also love, and it's coming out of everything. Now, fascinatingly, blind people like Brad and Vicky would have heard that light shines on things, right? They'd never seen light. Why are they describing light coming out of everything? And yet, that's what near-death experiencers who have sight also say. Captain Dale Black, the commercial airline pilot you heard from, and Dr. Mary Neal, the surgeon, said the same thing, that the light of heaven, Dale said, it is light and life and love all as one and coming out of everything. Dr. Neal said the same thing. Now, how do you get multiple blind people, spine surgeons, commercial airline pilots to all agree on some crazy notion that the light of heaven comes out of everything? You know, even shines out of the people, and that it's not like light on earth, it's love and life. Okay? And yet, interestingly, what most people who have read the Bible don't even know is that that's exactly what the Bible says. You know, Isaiah was a Jewish prophet writing in 780 BC. So, 780 years before Jesus ever came. But he says this in Isaiah 60, "No longer will you need the sun to shine by day, nor the moon to give its light by night, for the Lord your God will be your everlasting light." He's talking about in the life to come. And then John, one of Jesus' disciples, claims he was taken up to heaven or given a vision of heaven. And in Revelation chapter 21, he describes it. And he says, he describes the holy city of God. And he says, the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates the city. And the Lamb, referring to Jesus, is its light. The nations will walk in its light. Fascinating. Now think about that. What these people writing the scriptures talk about thousands of years ago is if what blind people having near-death experiences see, and it agrees with what people all around the globe having near-death experiences see. Interestingly, Jesus also said something similar in Matthew 13:43 about people. He said, "Then the righteous will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom." And as we'll talk about in other episodes, we can appear to each other just like we see each other now, but sometimes there's this light and love that I believe is the glory of God that we are sharing in. Imagine sharing in the love, the source of love and life, bursting forth through you. It's fascinating to think about. And maybe even the way we allow God's light and God's love to shine through us on this earth is creating capacity for us to experience more of that in the life to come.